Hello. Our reading this week is about cultural identity and the impact it has on instruction. I wanted to set up a quick framework for understanding where the chapter is going and to inspire some questions for the discussion. So in our discussion of cultural identity and how it impacts instruction, I'd like to begin with a man that some of you may already know. His name is Lev Vygotsky. He was an educational theorist and psychologist who suggested the following. As our brain learns in life, instruction targeting that learning should reach just beyond our existing level of understanding. He called this window that we should target the zone of proximal development. This is the range of difficulty an instructor should be targeting in order to inspire growth. If we reach any further than the zone of proximal development, making things too difficult, we simply inspire in the student frustration. On the other hand, if we fall short of the zone of proximal development, fundamentally targeting knowledge they already have in their wheelhouse, all we can inspire is tedium. The important piece of this for us is that Vygotsky recognized learning is not a one-size-fits-all production. It is a relationship between content and learner. I want to take that a step further today, along with your text, and suggest that it is not just cognitive capacity that we need to target and be aware of when we design our instruction. Education is an inherently cultural enterprise. We are in charge of both preserving and passing on, and seeking change in the existing culture. As such, we need to address the culture of our students as learners. The content engages them as cultural beings. Our students have complex identities forged through a number of factors. Theorist James Banks suggests that there are 6 such factors that we need to take into account. Race, class, gender, religion, what he calls exceptionality, which includes special education diagnoses, identification as gifted, honestly, quite a number of cognitive differences. And then he also includes a category for other because we have to in case we make a mistake. I'm not going to write it up. The important thing for us to recognize is that these factors inform the individual as they learn. And in fact, it's further important for us to note that they don't just individually impact the individual. They forge a recipe of identity and cultural values that we need to address, essentially creating a small nucleus of cultural identity and value for each individual student. And our content has to reach through the lens of that identity. And much like his zone of proximal development in cognitive sense, we might imagine that this cultural nucleus has a certain elasticity that will allow it to stretch, change, understand. If we go beyond that, perhaps we're ineffective. So it's important for us to take into account the fact that, for example, a straight Catholic female may engage content differently than a homosexual Jewish male. Both of these students have learning to do, but they're going to come, for example, to Romeo and Juliet in very different ways. So, establishing and recognizing this framework that humans come with a recipe of identity and cultural values and that these are critical elements for the delivery of instruction to those humans, there's one last piece we need to recognize. So something that Vygotsky did not bring up, but that is important for you and me to recognize, that is that in addition to the student identity, and its interaction with the content, there is also a teacher identity. And that teacher identity is not negligible in the instructional enterprise. When we bring Romeo and Juliet to our students, we bring it through our cultural lens. It would be a little naive and not very good service to the student to think that we ourselves were not engaging in cultural values when we interpret the content. And so what Banks is going to talk about this week is how we discover our own identity and how we grab a hold of that identity to engage the student in a relationship with the content. We're going to talk about identifying our cultural values and the impact of those values upon our instruction in our next lecture. Thanks.